Hello everyone, and welcome to another Genshin lore video. Today, I'll be going over the lore presented in the Desert Pavilion Chronicle artifact set. This set goes over the story of Gurabad, and how the genie Liloupar orchestrated its downfall. Also, this video does contain spoilers for the quests listed on screen now, so if you haven't done those, you have been warned. Anyways, let's move right on and get into the video. Before we get into the story presented by this artifact set, I want to first clarify where this all takes place in the timeline. By the time Gurabad rose, Nabu Malikata had already passed away. As a result, King Deshret slowly began to descend into madness, but Gurabad fell before the incident with forbidden knowledge. Now, the story of Gurabad begins with a humble shepherd named Ormazd. He would soon gain the favor of King Deshret and the genie Liloupar, allowing him to form the short-lived city. Ormazd would go on to unite the people of the desert with the help of Liloupar's blessing, and possibly some help from King Deshret as well. Liloupar did warn Ormazd that her blessing would come at a price, but he didn't take this too seriously. Eventually, the two would get married and have a daughter named Shirin. Prospects were looking up for the young city, but things took a turn when Liloupar realized that Ormazd was being corrupted by the power he held. Ormazd would go so far as to perpetuate the slavery in Gurabad, which Liloupar had expected him to abolish. Liloupar felt betrayed and hurt by Ormazd's actions, so she would plot against him. Over the course of 3 generations, Liloupar would carefully organize the fall of Gurabad from behind the scenes. To start her plot, Liloupar would have a secret child, a son named Kisra. For a time, Liloupar left Kisra with the giant divine bird Gognus, who took care of the young boy. As he grew up, Kisra accomplished a great number of feats that granted him the epithet Spirit of Victory. He would also be adopted by Ormazd, who gave him the name Parvez, making him Kisra Parvez. Ormazd would also give Kisra his daughter's hand in marriage, leading to Kisra marrying his sister Shirin. This is a bit strange, but at the same time, only Liloupar knew that they were siblings, and this was all part of her plan. Either way though, their marriage ended up being a loveless one, as Kisra only had desire for the throne. Shirin would soon become embittered with her life, leading to her wanting revenge against her father and her husband. Liloupar helped out here, giving Shirin poisoned honey to serve to Ormazd and Shirin's other siblings. They would all pass away after drinking the poisoned honey, and after Shirin saw what she had done, she went insane. As a result of Ormazd's death, Kisra took the throne of Gurabad. He also added the title of Ravan to his name, making him Kisra Parvez Ravan, or just Parvez Ravan. At some point, Shirin and Parvez Ravan would have a son together named Shirya. Before his birth, though, Liloupar had prophesied that he would be an ill omen upon the king's land. As such, when Shirye grew up, Parvez Ravan would banish him from the city, afraid of the prophecy set by Liloupar. After this, Parvez Ravan would desire more power, and would go to Liloupar for guidance. She would give Parvez Ravan designs for machines that used the spirits of Jinn as power. Liking this idea, Parvez Ravan would force Shirin to create the mindless Jinn that he needed. Once the machines were operational, they replaced the slave labor used in Gurabad. Meanwhile, far away from Gurabad, a mysterious figure wearing a brass mask was wandering the desert. The figure went by the name of Karamdin, but in truth, he was actually Shirya. After being banished from Gurabad by his father, he was forced to go by an alias and hide his face with a brass mask. Back in Gurabad, the slaves no longer had a way to make a living, as their roles had been taken over by the Jinn-powered machines. Liloupar would talk with these people, encouraging them to find the Brass Mask Karamdin in the desert and join him in the Brass Mask Rebellion. Over time, Karamdin would gain enough support to be able to launch an open rebellion against Parvez Ravan and Gurabad. As for what happened next, some details are contested and the truth isn't entirely clear. For the final part of her plan, Liloupar would use the power of the Abyss against Gurabad. According to Liloupar, her use of the Abyss caused Parvez Ravan to turn into a dark monster. However, Eremite history presented in the tale of Shiria and Shirin claims that Parvez-Ravan met his fate when Shiria killed him in his bedchambers. In the end though, it doesn't really matter which story is true, as both ended in Parvez-Ravan's death. After his death, Liloupar's continued use of abyssal power would lead to much of Gurabad being swallowed into the earth via a newly formed chasm. Along with the city, Shirin and Shiria both fell below the surface, where Eremite history believes that the two became evil apparitions. This belief was further empowered by a plague that arose from the newly formed chasm, which ended up killing half of the inhabitants of Gurabad. After this, the city was abandoned, thus marking the end of Gurabad. There were a few attempts to revive its former glory, but all of them ended in failure. So, with all of that lore explained, I want to talk about how the story and its characters are perceived in the present day. Since no one knew of her plots, Liloupar is largely seen as a neutral figure in Gurabad's downfall, despite her being the mastermind behind each and every event that led up to it. Ferrages, a fellow genie, did suspect her, but did nothing about it in the end. Now, despite having little to no awareness of her actions due to her insanity, Shirin was seen as a villain in the story. Her son Shiria's name would become associated with cowards and exiles, and he would be dubbed the Lord of Pestilence. As for the plague that rose from the chasm of Gurabad, it would become known as Shiria's plague, cementing the belief that he was a villain in the story. Despite all of this though, Shiria had almost no choice in the life he led. Even before he was born, his life had been planned out by Liloupar, and he was nothing more than a means to an end for her. Now, I also want to talk about the potential of us getting to visit Gurabad at some point in the future. Currently, you can find the Great Gate of Gurabad located in the desert of Hadramaveth. I think that perhaps one day in the future, we may be able to travel through this gate and explore the fallen city. Similar to Unkonomiya in the chasm's underground mines, Gurabad would have its own separate map, and would likely not have a statue of the Seven within its borders. If we do get to visit Gurabad, we could find out what exactly happened to Shirin and Shiria, and potentially even meet Liloupar again. At the end of the Apocalypse Lost World Quest series, Liloupar returned to Gurabad via the Great Gate. We don't know what happened to Liloupar after she returned, but this could be answered if we get to visit Gurabad. Additionally, it could give us more information on the Abyss, which is something that would be very much welcomed. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the lore presented in the Desert Pavilion Chronicle artifact set. Now, this artifact set does also mention some other city-states that existed in Sumeru's past, and I plan on covering those in a later video. I also want to make videos focusing on King Deshret and Nabu Malikata, explaining their lore and some theories I have about them. In the meantime, I recommend my videos on Flower of Paradise Lost and Vorukash's Glow. With that said, I would love to hear what other bits of lore you'd like me to cover in the comments below as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are also in the description if you want to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video.